So rest is actually not inactivity, and it's not the absence of unpleasant circumstances. Rest is actually abiding in God. It's actually a place. That place is God himself. We are in him. We abide in him. So when we're in that place, we're in rest. And so rest is actually is a place in God in which we are allowing him to be, or understanding and acknowledging the fact that he is the source of everything in our life. He is the source of how we get our protection, our provision, our identity, the fact that we feel loved, liked, and comforted. The reason I point all of those out are, and we'll be talking about that in a second, because actually that is where mother and father wounds stem from. Father wounds stem from issues that we've had with the masculine in our lives that can come from either a man or a woman. Typically, though, obviously it'll come from a man. Usually it'll come from a father, which is why it's called a father wound. But it's from the masculine, and the masculine is meant to help someone else understand that they're protected, provided for, and identified. And if they don't have that, and then they now suffer traumas and are coping and come up with all kinds of coping mechanisms as a result of it, it's called a father wound. Mother wound is the other aspect of the father, other aspects that he provides. And it is where, if a mother wound is where we have had a lack in our lives of understanding that we are loved, liked, and can expect to be comforted. So if we have that, well, then we can develop what's called mother wound. We have all these traumas, and then that will manifest itself in particular ways, and we end up coping in using all kinds of things. I'll mention some very specific things in just a second that we actually, that are indicative of mother wounds, and other things that are indicative of a father wound. But the whole point of all of this is to help us understand, to get some kind of a physical foothold of things in our lives that are going on, and understanding it's not our father and our mother. The issue is we projected those things onto God, and that's how we interact with him. So we have this father wound with God, or this mother wound with God, and that's what we need to overcome. We need to understand that we have not been given have received a very clear picture in reality of who it is that God actually is. So rest is understanding that he is actually allowing him, not understanding. It's allowing him to be the source from which we receive all of those things, and being the source of everything that happens in your life. Your clients, who you get, your business, your dreams, your heart's desires, your relationships with other people, your finances, everything needs to come from God, not by us working for it, thinking God has left us abandoned and alone, and that he's going to come back one day making sure that we got it right. That it's all on us, and then we have to carry that burden and that weight of that responsibility, because it's not. The Lord is the one that we need to rely on to provide for all those things. We'll be walking into that, about how to literally practically do that, because I have to live it, so I want to explain it to y'all about how you can live it that way too. So rest, why are we not in rest? Rest is actually our natural state. So to not be in rest is not natural for a son of God. So what is it that we're doing? We're actually in a constant state of resistance. I'll be drawing some visuals later to help us understand, but we are in a constant state of resistance. If you're not in rest, you're in resistance. You're actively doing something. You're not passively doing something. You are actively doing something. Now, you may not be conscious of it, but we are resisting. So in these practices that we'll be going through, you'll come up against hurdles, and I want to walk y'all through those. So feel free to let me know when you run up against one of those and can't seem to go through, because I can work with you to help identify that is actually resistance. Because it feels like I'm doing everything and I can't go any further. I'm not doing this, Ashley. I'm trying. I want this. No, we're resisting. And to help us identify deep down where that resistance is coming from. So if we're not in rest, we're actually in resistance. And we're resisting God. If rest is in God, and we're not feeling at rest, it means we're in resistance against him. Why would we be in resistance against God? Because we don't feel safe with him. So, and why don't we feel safe with them? We don't feel loved. We don't feel provided for, protected, identified, loved, liked, or able to be comforted. And so we're in a constant state of resistance. We want to keep him at bay. We want to learn about him, and we want to get close to him. We want to feel him, but we don't want to move into him, and we don't want him to move into us because it's very, very vulnerable. And we have to overcome that. So that is the state that we're actually in. But I want to make sure to constantly layer in lots of encouragement in here. Excuse me. You are actually in a state of rest. You're just not aware of it. So we are trying to move our soul to the point where it stops resisting because our spirit's already in rest. It is already who you are. That's why you have permission to move into it. You're not going to be doing something or becoming something this weekend or from this message of rest that you're not already. You're going to realize that you are and choose to stand in it. That's all we're doing. You already have it. You're not gaining anything because God's already given you everything. You're not becoming something different. You don't have to change. You're everything you've ever wanted to be. You were all of those commandments that Jesus told us to be. You're everything in the 10 Commandments, everything on the Sermon on the Mount, all of the edifications, all the encouragements, all the whatever, those are actually descriptions of your character. So but we don't believe that is, and whatever it is that we believe is what has power in our lives. So we got to shift our belief to actually believing that whatever God says about us is true.